Chelsea against Huddersfield, just 3 days after losing 4-0 to Bournemouth. A lot has to change and a lot has to be said. And that's exactly what I'm going to do today. Say a lot of things that need to be said about the players, about Sarri, and also about some of the fans. To find out about all of that, Chelsea's problems, Maurizio Sarri's press conference, and both teams, be sure to watch all of this preview. Hello there guys and welcome back to 100% Chelsea from a preview of the Chelsea versus Huddersfield game taking place tomorrow afternoon, with the kickoff being at 3 PM UK time, obviously at Stamford Bridge. And yeah, today is going to be a little bit different. Of course, subscribe if you haven't already, leave a like, I'd massively appreciate that. Just leave a like if you do enjoy the video and all of that. But now getting straight into it, because I'm going to talk about the opposition a little bit less than I usually do today, simply because boy, do I have a lot to say about Chelsea and our problems. Jesus Christ. But, still, let's start it off with a little bit of talk about Huddersfield. So, basically, Huddersfield are bottom of the table with just 11 points from 24 games played. 6 points of Fulham, who are in 19th, so just ahead of them. And they haven't won a game since November 25th. 12 games without a win. 11 of those ended in defeat. Only their 0-0 draw with Cardiff a few weeks ago was the only game that they didn't lose. And after that draw with Cardiff, actually, Huddersfield parted ways with their manager as he basically left the club. And they brought in a new guy in Jan Siewert from Borussia Dortmund too. And to be fair to him and to them as well, in that one game that he has been in charge, for so far, in their 1-0 defeat to Everton, they did look like quite a different team. They only lost 1-0. They still lost, but, they created actually more chances than Everton and had way more off the ball as well. So, it might be a little bit different playing Huddersfield tomorrow than it, would have been, say, 3 weeks ago or whatever. But still, just to finish it off, they've scored by far the least amount of goals in the league, with just 13 goals scored while conceding 41, which is, bad, but not quite, basically as bad as their, goal scoring, as it isn't the worst in the league. But now, basically, that's enough about Huddersfield already. Let's talk about Chelsea. And before getting into today's press conference, let's talk about what happened after the Bournemouth game. Sarri, first of all, locked himself in the dressing room with the players for almost an hour and kicked everyone else out of the dressing room. And that included his coaching staff. That included Gianfranco Zola. That included everyone else that was part of the staff. And apparently, the staff was just waiting outside the dressing room, kind of trying to listen through the door. But reportedly, Sarri didn't shout at them like, for example, Antonio Conte did at times. He rather picked apart the dreadful performance in the second half, especially in a measured and composed manner. And apparently, even asked the team if they thought that he could do anything better or differently. So, it is very interesting how managers handle their teams differently and handle, bad defeats differently. And he also spoke to the players again individually yesterday back at the training ground. As he said in his press conference after the game, basically he just wants to understand why the players just threw everything out of the window once we conceded the goal. Once we went 1-0 down, and especially once we went 2-0 down, everything was gone. And then still after the game, he just said that he's very frustrated because what he saw in the second half had absolutely nothing to do with anything that he's telling and trying to teach them. Absolutely nothing to do with it. He said, we played as 11 individuals, not as a team. And then we also stopped to defend. And of course, then you're going to be in trouble. And then he even admitted that the players are yet to even show the basics of his methods. Basically, they're doing hardly any of what he's asking them to do, which is what I keep telling you guys. What we're doing, what we're seeing is not Sarriball. It's not Sarriball in the slightest. But anyway, moving from from Wednesday's press conference after the game to today's press conference, obviously again by Sarri. And first of all, he spoke about a lot of things that need to change in the offensive phase. Obviously, he said that in the last game we had 4 or 5 players constantly with their backs to the opposition's goal. And we can't do that, he said. He said we were too tight as well. The front three were way too tight and so made it really easy for the opponent to defend against it because, they could just crowd out, the central areas of the pitch and then make it impossible to create it. Basically saying that we need to play much wider at times, obviously depending on the opposition. But in this case, we needed to play much, much wider. And always, what I keep saying as well, we just needed a lot more movement. Sarri did say that we can't stay out wide constantly. We need to come inside to receive the ball, but not standing there or not staying inside. That's not where we're meant to basically be positioned in our team. We're way too static. We're not anywhere near fluid enough. Napoli were so fluid. And basically he also said that we need to receive the ball on the run, not while being stood still and after 4 or 5 touches by every player. It is 1 or 2 touches and receiving the ball on the run, and that's what we're not doing because we're not moving. The other players that are on the ball can't, basically release the ball again after 1 or 2 touches because there's no movement and no one free, and they basically have to move to pass it to someone, and then those passes are risky, and then we misplace those passes sometimes, and then we run into counterattacks. It's all over the place, and it's exactly what I keep saying. And the Boston also spoke about the job here actually possibly being a little bit more difficult than he expected, but mainly because the team played a completely different type of football, and especially because they won with that type of football. So making them change basically their mentality in the head of how to play football is difficult, and it takes time because obviously they're used to winning that way. So when they obviously play a completely different way and then it doesn't win them games, their minds start to go, and that's, I think, kind of the issue when we go to 0 down. That's why it's all over the place there, because then we're kind of trying to do old things that they still have ingrained in their brain, obviously from the last few years, rather than doing what we're actually trying to do. And then some of the players do that, some of the players do that, and then it's just all over the place. His main point with that was that the players were used to carrying the ball, and now basically we have to move without the ball and then pass the ball quickly. And a lot of players still have to get used to that. And that's exactly what I hinted at when I spoke in my review about the wingers keeping the ball for way too long. They receive the ball and then they just run around with it rather than releasing it quickly and, with movement creating space. That's not what we did. And then when asked directly whether he needs a plan B, Sarri simply asked why. I know a lot of you will be angry at that. And I can understand why. I don't necessarily agree, but I can understand. Basically, Sarri said he first needs his plan A to work, to start working properly. Once we finally start playing our football, Sarri's football, he said, then we can change things. Then we can adapt things. At times, Sarri did play a 4-2-3-1 at Napoli. Not very often, but he did at times. But only after the, initial idea and the actual idea of football. Because you can have an idea of football and played in pretty much any system. Okay, 5 at the back, maybe not. But generally, whether it's 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, 4-4-2, you can change a lot of things. But the idea of football can be the very same. But before the idea, doesn't work, no matter what system you're going to use, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. In my opinion, at least, and clearly also in Sarri's opinion. He actually then also spoke about Eden Hazard and said that he thinks that the player is now changing. I don't know whether it was after having the chats with him, the individual talk, and after, obviously, also after the talk in the dressing room with the whole team, because apparently he kind of picked out Hazard as an individual to criticize after the performance, basically criticizing him, which I do understand. It's not like he's being mean to Hazard. Hazard is the best player. So he should be the one that stands out as the best player and not be just as bad as the others. So I can understand why he would pick him out, but that was, is what was reported anyway, that he kind of picked him out, to criticize. But now, today he said that he thinks it's changing. So maybe that talk helped. Maybe that talk at least made Sarri think that, things might change now. And basically Sarri said Hazard was used to being an individual player. That's what he was used to being, because he needed to be an individual player because of the systems that he played in. But now he has to play in a cooperative way. Now, he's an incredible player, Sarri said, but of course, he still has to improve. Every player has to improve. He actually said all of the wingers need to improve because they are too much of individual players, which makes it so difficult for our striker to do well, to make the right movement at the right time, because the wingers aren't following a system, but their individual instincts, if you will. And then lastly, he spoke about Gonzalo Higuain and said that he's not at the top physically. Basically the whole slagging off that Higuain always gets about not being fully fit. But Sarri explained it by saying in the last 45 days or so, he only played a few games. First because he had a back problem when he was at Milan. And then obviously because of the transfer, he kind of missed 2 games. And, training was a little bit off. And then he was travelling and waiting for, things to happen, basically. And Sarri then said once he improves physically, which the way he said it didn't sound like it would take particularly long. So he's basically just getting the match fitness. It's not like, he's got no stamina and we need to work on him for a few months for him to get a stamina up. It's more like just a little bit of match fitness that you have after not playing for a while. Kind of a normal thing and not really a big deal. And he said once, he has that, once he finds that, Sarri said he will be very useful for us immediately. That was really it from the press conference. And now let's speak about all of this. Do I keep saying that we need to move so much more and that only then we can finally start to pass the ball quicker and will then inevitably create chances? Yes, I do keep saying that. And people criticizing Sarri for the way we're only passing the ball around with no purpose, only passy and sideways passing. Sorry, but you're being stupid. Criticize the players for that, because that's almost the opposite of what Sarri's actually asking them to do. Yes, you can criticize Sarri for not getting them to, do what he wants them to do. I do understand that. But, they're footballers. They're adults. Don't they have any sort of self-responsibility to listen to their boss and at least try to do what he's telling them to do? Because 9 times out of 10, it doesn't look like they're trying to do it, for more than maybe 5 minutes of a game. They have moments where that's what he's asking us to do, and it actually works. But then they're going back to not moving at all. And I think they do have self-responsibility. Of course, I agree, Sarri should get them to do it better. But at the same time, it's still more the player's fault. It's clearly more the player's fault. It's not Sarri asking them to, just pass it around with no purpose. That is their issue. I completely agree. We pass it around with no purpose way too much. But that's not Sarri's fault. Well, that's not what Sarri's asking anyway. Yet with all of this, Sarri has to hear, from the stands, you don't know what you're doing. And Sarri is the one that is standing there taking the criticism from the fans after the game, outside the ground, basically before getting on the bus kind of thing. But basically he was being confronted by fans and, stood there, took the criticism by the fan and apologised to their face on Wednesday, as shown by a video recorded outside the ground after the game. But, Sarri is the one who stood there taking the criticism and apologising to fans and actually agreeing with them, with some of the stuff they're saying to him. But, if you ever watch Napoli in the last 3 seasons, not just watch highlights or watch, highlight reels of their football, but properly watch their games, you'd understand what I'm talking about. You'd understand what I'm talking about and how good Napoli were and that we're not anywhere near doing any of this. We are meant to play fluid football. And what we're doing, we're playing static football with sideways passing the ball around. That's what we're doing. I hate being condescending because everyone is entitled to their opinion. But there comes a point when I can't take the bullshit that I see on social media and just leave it uncommented. Like, I can't do that. Like, we had that one move and chance in that game on Wednesday when Luis fizzed the low-driven pass to Hazard straight, basically straight through the midfield. Hazard controlled it really well, used his acceleration to cover a bit of ground before releasing Pedro on the right, who stayed wide and obviously had some space because of it, then cut inside to get a shot away. That's what Sarri wants. Quick attacking movement. That was quick passing. Quick pass by Luis to Hazard. He took a few yards and released Pedro in space, and he could, basically drive forward and then do something with that. Now, the ideal would have been for Pedro to go and find the striker and allow him an easy goal opportunity. That's how, Napoli scored most of their goals. It was kind of easy finishes at the end of the day. Kind of like City and Liverpool have it a lot of the time. They play their way so well into those dangerous areas that they end up being easy finishes. A lot of their goals anyway. But Pedro didn't do that. Instead, he went obviously for the shot from just outside the box. And, that's okay if his shot was better than it was because it was dreadful. But we can still, shoot better and we could have still scored from that. That's what we kind of want to do. And as for Jorginho, because I simply have to address these things, stop asking him to assist goals, let alone score goals. He plays in the number 6 position for goodness sake. Usually around 40 yards from the goal, even when we are in dominant possession. He's so far away from the opposition's goal and your opponent is sat there with basically 10 players within, 20, 30 yards of their own goal. Yes, Jorginho can't pass like Fabregas. Fabregas is one of the best passers football has ever seen. But even Fabregas could only get assists from that distance from goal, from 40 yards from goal, when we were playing on the counter-attack and he had players making runs in behind and he could find them with his unbelievable over-the-top balls. Not when the opponent is sitting deep and we're having to pass away through it. Even Fabregas couldn't get assists from back there in that position. So stop asking Jorginho to do things that aren't actually his job. And to the people that don't get and don't really understand what Jorginho brings to our team, you'll see it the second the midfielders around him, the fullbacks and the wingers start doing their jobs properly, because they're not. They need to move so much more, so much more. Kante, in my opinion, is actually the closest to doing that, more than any of the other players around him. Yet people keep saying that Kante is the one that can't play that position that he's playing. He's doing better than almost everybody else, but still nowhere near the amount of movement Sarri actually wants from him. Yes, it does sound ridiculous. How much do you want the players to move? Well, watch Liverpool, watch City and watch Napoli when Sarri was there. That's how you win football games. That's how you play good football. Watch Barcelona when they were in the tiki-taka days. They didn't just pass around without movement. They passed their way forwards by moving around constantly. That's how it works. If you need to play in triangles, we don't move enough. We have no triangles. We just stand there constantly. It's ridiculous. But once they all do that, Jorginho will shine like crazy, I'm telling you. And our problem isn't the defence anyway. Even if we conceded 4 goals on Wednesday, we've got, up until then, we had even, equal amount of goals conceded as Man City, who have the second best defence in the league behind Liverpool. Our problem is scoring goals. We haven't scored enough goals for a long time, basically since our 4-0 win, well, I guess over PAOK, but in the league over Burnley. Since then we haven't scored enough. Our problem, like I say, is scoring goals. So playing the 4-2-3-1 instead of a 4-3-3, basically dropping Kante next to Jorginho, just gives us 1 player less in the final third with only 4 compared to 5, especially when the opponent is sitting deep and obviously the 3 forwards now and, the left centre mid and the right centre mid push forward. Then you can argue Kante shouldn't be in that position, but yes, he should. He should really have scored against Bournemouth, should have equalised, and he scored, 4 goals already this season? He scored some good goals, got some very, important goals as well from good positions. He can clearly do it. I'm sorry, but it's just stupid. It doesn't make sense to just change the formation. It wouldn't change a thing. It would just harm us more in our attacking. The defending isn't the main issue here. Yes, we have these mistakes, but Luis could have made the same mistake that led to the 2-0, whether we play a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3. Wouldn't have made a single bit of a difference. And after the 2-0, the heads were gone anyway. We could have played 10-0-0 and we still would have conceded. What a lot of people are talking about that Jorginho should do is actually Mateo Kovacic's job, but he's not doing it. Except for when he hit the bar on Wednesday. Great movement and positioning. That's what he's meant to do. And if he does keep starting, hopefully he can do it more. But in my opinion, him not doing that more is partly why the wingers stay inside so much, which again was one of the issues against Bournemouth. Because when they do stay wide, yes, we do pull the opponent apart a little bit, which obviously helps. But then there's only the striker in the middle. And even if they're pulled apart, he'd still be against 3 or 4 players usually down the middle. And that's because he doesn't receive any help, whoever the striker is, whether that was Morata, Giroud or now Higuain. It doesn't matter because they don't receive any help or enough help from midfield, most particularly from Mateo Kovacic, who should make his way to the edge or into the box to help, but he doesn't, which is exactly why, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion, Ruben Loftus-Cheek has to start there the second he's fit enough to do so. Hopefully he is fit enough to do so tomorrow. Whenever he's fit enough to do so, he just has to, start in that position, because he does help the strikers more, because he is a little bit like Frank Lampard in that sense, getting into the box late, getting to the edge of the box and finding goal scoring opportunities. But still, like Sarri said, the wingers, most importantly Hazard, in my opinion also, finally have to start playing the system as well. I mean, they've barely changed from the last few seasons. They do the exact same things. The wingers didn't change. Pedro, Willian, Hazard, they play the exact same way as they used to. It didn't change, except that they see more of the ball and they do it more times in the game, I guess. But we do things differently now as a team, and so should they. You can talk about consistency with Hazard, and of course sometimes he has great games. Sometimes he has these crazy days when no matter what he does, it will always work. But you have these odd games where he does follow the system a little bit more, and then it immediately works better. I'm not saying it's just the system that makes Hazard great. Of course not. Hazard is a great player. And, I'm not going to put it down to him playing not very well against Bournemouth because, he wants to leave or whatever. His head is in Madrid. I'm not going to go there. There's no point. But he does need to do better. He does need to follow the system more. Now, lineup-wise for the game tomorrow, I'd only make 2 changes from Wednesday, actually. Changing the whole team won't make us stop losing our heads when we concede, 1 or especially 2 goals. That's a problem within the whole squad. It doesn't make a difference who you play from the team. So I would still give Emerson another go at left back. I do fear that it's going to be Marcos Alonso, but I would give Emerson another go. And I would also put Ruben Loftus-Cheek in instead of Kovacic if he is fit to start, which I really hope he is. Don't really want Barkley. He's arguably even worse than Kovacic. Because he just gives the ball away constantly, which is even worse than Kovacic not helping, going forward, I guess. And on the right, I'd actually start Callum Hudson-Odoi. I mean, he set the game out on Wednesday. Whether that was a punishment for handing in a transfer request, which I wouldn't be all that mad about. People might disagree, but I think handing a transfer request at 18 at the club you've been at for 10 years is one of the biggest signs of disrespect you can show. Or whether the reason was a small injury, or whether he was simply left out because, we only have one winger on the bench, and Sarri decided for that to be Willian and Hudson-Odoi not to start. Tomorrow, he should start. Pedro was dreadful, and Willian, was no better. Although, to be fair to Willian, when he came on, it was a very, very difficult situation for the entire team already. No one would have done a lot better than he did when he came on. But still, I think Hudson-Odoi has to come on. Also because I think he gives us a little bit more width than the other two. Because the other two tend to cut in a little bit more. I think his left foot isn't just as developed as the other two. So that's why he's not as comfortable cutting in when he does play on the right. So that's why he stays out wide a little bit more and helps us with a problem that we had against Bournemouth. So maybe in that sense that would help. But yeah, we'll obviously have to wait and see. But that's what I do. Obviously the rest, Kepa, Azpilicueta, Rudiger, Luiz, Jorginho, N'Golo Kanté, Hazard and Higuain should stay the same in my opinion. I mean, rotation or not, because the other options are just a lot worse. I mean, maybe Christensen instead of Antonio Rudiger, because, Rudiger looked tired after, looked really tired on Wednesday after already starting on Sunday. To be honest, you could even argue that Hazard should be dropped, but I think that will be a slight bit too reactionary. I mean, I think he can and eventually will adapt, and I really hope that what Sarri said in the press conference today, that he thinks he is changing now, that maybe because of the chats that they had with each other, that will, we'll see a difference, on tomorrow, obviously. That would be good. I mean, will we out of nowhere play exactly how Sarri wants us to play? Will we play exactly like Napoli played under him? No, of course we won't. But I'm really hoping that it will be a little bit closer to it at least. A little bit closer. A little bit less static. More movement. Quicker passing. And then create chances. And take the chances and ideally not get unlucky again and hit the bloody woodwork for an 18th time. The only thing I'm going to say is sometimes you maybe need these kind of heavy defeats. Not slightly unlucky defeats or, defeats to big teams. Because those don't fuck with the minds of the players as much. Because if you just about lose and get a little bit unlucky, they're like, all right, we had a bad day. If you lose to a big team, they're in their heads, all right, we lost to a good team. You can lose to them on a day. Fair enough. But sometimes you need a heavy loss to a lesser team, which all due respect to Bournemouth, they are. But for the players to understand that they need to change, sometimes you need, a defeat like that. Hopefully we can use it like that. Hopefully we can. I do think that we are going to win, even though they are a bit of a different team now under the new manager. But if we don't, fuck me, I won't know what to do or say. But, I'd love to give them an absolute trashing and let all our anger out on them, but I don't see that happening. Maybe a 2-0 win or so, but I don't see us scoring much more than 2. There's so much more that I would like to say, but this video is already very long, I'm pretty sure. So let's do that on another day, and that's really it for me. Leave me all of your thoughts ahead of the game. Score predictions, predicted lineups on everything that I said today. Leave me all of your thoughts on it down in the comment section below. You're entitled to disagree with me. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. I would massively appreciate it because, No, I just had to let loose a little bit today. It's not a rant, but I just had to get a few things on my chest because I was getting pretty annoyed over the last few days with some of the stuff I saw on social media. Don't forget to check out my social media, which is last1507 on both Instagram and Twitter, as you can see over here, and also the links to both of them are down in the description below. So if you could follow me over there, I would massively love you for it. I would massively love you for it. I would just love you for it. Thank you. Please follow me. And of course, this is YouTube, so if you haven't already, please do subscribe to 100% Chelsea, and also don't forget to hit the notification bell button and choose to be notified about all uploads so you don't miss any future videos. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up the shells, upwards and onwards, and I'll see you next time.